Alright, I want to demonstrate real quick how I start this big old wood box, which can be a little more difficult than your modern wood stoves. For one thing, it is in the basement, and because it's in the basement you have a little bit of downdraft from the chimney, and in order to get it updraft you need to crack the window a little bit, get some air coming into the basement. It's not going to cool down the house, but it will help the flow of air going up when you start the fire. Also, you don't want your heater running, which is in the basement, because that's going to suck air down the chimney a little bit if you're just starting the fire. So I prefer to use a variety of wood when I start a wood burner. Another thing I do is I sift my ashes and I get a lot of coal. That also aids in building a coal base, a hot coal base in the bottom of the wood burner very quickly. It's not necessary, but I find it very helpful. And I use sticks about thumb thickness and less for the majority. And I also use scrap wood. You don't have to use scrap wood, but it's advised that you do. So you have a lot of scrap wood here. And small wood, hardwood, to begin your fire. And I find that to be the best way. I also use some newspaper and cardboard in with it, and I'll demonstrate how I build the fire and get it going. What I do is I ball up newspaper and start adding newspaper, and you can see I have a little layer of coals down in there. I'll add some newspaper. I'm not going to use any cardboard. I usually shred a little cardboard and throw it in there also. I'll add my newspaper, and then I'll start adding my kindling. And you want it loosely piled. You don't want it stacked tight. You don't want it damp. You don't want it to be smothered by being too tightly packed. Anything that's going to hinder heat, fuel, and oxygen flow is going to make it harder or more difficult to start your fire. So I just randomly put this lighter stuff in. And the idea is fire burns up, and you want it to burn in the direction towards the flue. And if you have scrap wood like this, that always helps. Then you begin adding larger pieces. Hardwood is preferred. Remember that fire burns upward and in the direction of airflow. That's the idea of this, is to have the heavier stuff up higher so that it heats and dries and begins to burn the larger stuff as the fire builds. I'm going to use a little of that. That's a cattail. Not needed, but I just wanted to play around with it. And for someone that might not be very good at starting a fire, a little starting fluid. Something you would use in your charcoal grill. That also helps. And this is a mish metal. You could use a match or a lighter. And there you have it. Now, I don't close the door. What I do is I leave it a crack. It's safe because it's held, but it is cracked open because I want plenty of airflow when this fire starts at first, because it's going to build a lot of smoke when it first starts. And so you want that smoke to be able to get pushed up by the airflow coming in through the door. I'll give you a little peek here. You see it's going in there. And it will get going rather quickly. And wood burners are most volatile when they are first starting up. That's when you really have to keep an eye on them to make sure they keep going and yet don't get too hot too quick. And of course you can control the heat by opening and closing the door a little bit. You can control the amount of oxygen, which controls the heat level, and also the airflow, which is going to allow you to control the smoke going up the chimney properly. Open it up too much at first and you're going to get smoke coming out of it. Now once it gets going well, then you can close this door and it will rely on these vents to get the oxygen that it needs. So I'll just keep an eye on this for the next 20 minutes and adjust the door accordingly. And because I know this stove very well, I have no problem, but someone that's not familiar with it would have a problem if they don't understand how to do this wood burner. Another thing with this wood burner in particular, I recommend not burning anything larger in diameter than wood like this. Say 4, 5, 6 inches in diameter. Stuff like this big around. That's perfect size, and I recommend only burning hardwood. You can burn some softwoods, like this is cedar, that's going to burn fine. If you do burn softwoods, I recommend softwood that is not laden with moisture and sap. Okay, you can see this is going nicely already. It's only been a couple minutes. And we'll check in it in a little bit, and I'll show you how it's progressing. Also very important, you always want space around your wood box. Never put anything within 36 inches of your wood box that could burn. This is wood here, but I have 36 inches at least between the wood box and that wall. This wall, on the other hand, is brick. It's not going to burn, so it can be this close to the pipe and the wood box. Now, I did bring the triple wall chimney into the basement, and that's to protect up here so I don't overheat my ceiling. Now this is something that has to be moved. No wood, no paper, or anything within 36 inches of your wood box or pipe. It's been about 10 minutes and you can see and hear this thing's roaring. It's going good. Now I'm going to keep this controlled and let it burn down to a nice bed of coals, and then I'll add a load of wood. You don't want to try to add wood while it's burning like this. You want to let it burn down to a nice bed of embers, hot embers, and I'm going to rake the embers out, flatten them out along the bottom of the wood box, and then I can put my wood on top, and I'll demonstrate that. It's been about 20 minutes, and as you can see, I have a big pile of embers, but there's still a little bit of wood in there that needs to become ember before I try to load, or else I'm going to get a little smoke flowing this way if I try to rake coals forward. But I do have a big pile of embers, and that's because I did use all those coals to get this thing going with. See, it's burning nicely, and one of the telltale signs of a nice burning fire is that while it's burning like this, there will be no visible smoke coming out of the chimney, and I'll show you that right now. There's my chimney, and you can see no visible smoke. Just a small amount, and that's what you want. If your fire is burning well, you're not going to be having big clouds of white and gray smoke coming out. Nice, clear, and nice smelling smoke. It's not going to smell all punky and messed up. So I suggest when reloading that you always have something on your arms and hands to protect them. Pull your coals forward. If it does get a little smoky at first, you can just bring it back a little bit, get that air flowing. Start with some light pieces. If you have them, I think it's best to use some light pieces. Throw them in first, then slightly bigger. And again, you want airflow between the wood. It's best to have plenty of airflow between the logs, and you can add more small pieces before it starts smoking up on you. Get that door closed, and again leave it open a crack until it gets going, and then you can shut it. Now one of the things I didn't show yet is that once it's going really well and you have a full load in there, if you want to bank it down, I don't have the lever that used to control this, so I have my own setup. I just damp the fire down by doing that. That controls the airflow by adding and removing that. But you can see it's going nice now. That new wood is going to burn quite well with no problem because it has a nice base of coals down in there. Okay, so you can see after just loading up this wood burner with fresh load of wood, it does produce a little bit more noticeable smoke, but it's dissipating quickly and easily into the atmosphere. It's not causing a great deal of heavy laden smoke. Of course, with different atmospheric pressures and weather systems, you're going to see different things happening. Right now the smoke is being pushed down a little bit, but you see it's dissipating quite easily. Now as the wood burner heats up again and gets its airflow more steady, you'll no longer see that visible smoke like it is. It'll just be little bits of it, and it'll be mostly just heat waves that you see coming out of it. So anyway, I hope this is informative to someone who's dealing with an old wood burner or wood box, or is new with a wood burning stove. I wish you well, and I wish the person who's taking over this wood box well also.